Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. The wildfire smoke has caused our air quality to deteriorate even further in southwestern Alberta. We will explain where most of the smoke is coming from. First Nations across the country are welcoming back powwows as more health restrictions are being lifted. And an update from Europe where flooding has killed around 180 people in both Germany and Belgium.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. The federal government announced today that fully vaccinated U.S. travelers can enter Canada for non-essential travel beginning on August the 9th. Government officials say the country will reopen to global vaccinated travelers on September 7th.
All travelers, regardless of vaccination status, will still need a negative pre-departure test. However, starting August 9th, we will shift to a mandatory randomized testing for fully vaccinated travelers. So only those that have been randomly selected will need to complete a day one test. This shift allows us to focus efforts on unvaccinated travelers while still keeping track of new variants.
Haidu adds that the 3-night stay at quarantine hotels will be eliminated on August 9th. Instead, travelers can go to their own quarantine location to complete their 14-day quarantine. Many of us here in southwestern Alberta woke up to smoky and hazy conditions. The wildfire smoke from both BC and Montana has lingered for a number of days now, and according to Environment Canada, it will be with us for at least a few more days. Air quality indexes were reported as high in many parts of the province today. At last count, there are now more than 308 wildfires burning in BC, including 2 100-hectare wildfires burning out of control along the Alberta-BC border in the East Kootenays. One fire grew from just under a hectare to 100 hectares overnight. Health officials are reminding those of us with respiratory issues to take extra precautions and limit our time outdoors. They also say to limit outdoor exposure for infants and seniors when the air quality is rated at high risk. You know, with the smoky conditions Lethbridge and most of southern Alberta has been experiencing, health experts are reminding people to only go outside when absolutely necessary. As Carson Marsuki explains, there are some safety tips you can take before heading out to keep yourself safe.
With the smoky conditions, Lethbridge remains under an air quality statement, and health officials are advising people to stay inside and only go outdoors if they need to. Chief Operations Officer with the Alberta Lung Association, Nina Snyder, says whether or not you have a health condition, the smoke can cause respiratory issues.
Wood smoke can irritate your eyes, lungs, throat, and sinuses. You might notice that you're headachy or you have allergy-like feelings with sinus issues.
If you do suffer from a health condition, there are some measures you can take to stay safe inside your own home.
Keep your doors, windows, fireplace, and dampers shut. Using air conditioners set on the recirculation settings, that will be helpful.
However, with it being summertime right now, working outside for some is unavoidable. Snyder encourages those who are outside to monitor their conditions and take the necessary precautions.
For example, taking frequent breaks, maybe sitting in their car on the recirculate session during lunch breaks or coffee breaks, ensuring that their medication is to hand and taking it when necessary.
Wearing a mask to help protect yourself has become second nature to some, although Snyder says wearing one to help with the smoke won't necessarily keep out all the small particles.
People might not notice the smell as much when they're wearing a mask, but it really doesn't filter out the particulate matter that can be inhaled through a mask. So it's really not something that we suggest or recommend.
According to Environment Canada, Lethbridge's air quality is forecasted to be at a 9 on Tuesday, meaning those with a health condition will be at a high risk. For Bridge City News, I'm Carson Marsouk.
The BC government says accommodation for wildfire evacuees are filling up. Emergency Management BC says that in many communities, accommodations are reaching capacity. It is encouraging anyone who self-evacuated to a larger community due to smoky conditions to consider going home. The agency is also asking people to begin planning where they would go if ordered to evacuate and advising them to check with their insurance companies to see if their costs while on evacuation are covered. Many who are fighting fires, particularly in the interior of BC, in and around Kamloops, are wondering why the province has yet to declare a state of emergency. BC Premier John Horgan has yet to declare one as the wildfires continue to rage across his province.
We did fly over the Sparks fires, and there were numerous plumes throughout the valley. I know that the people behind me at the fire center are working every minute of the day to contain not just the fires there, but right across the province. And I'm confident that they're doing everything that they can. And of course, people on the ground have enormous challenges, unimaginable for those who are not living in the front line of a fire coming at your community. So I have a great deal of concern, and I share that with them. But I am confident that everything that can be done is being done from this center here in Kamloops.
BC fire officials say there are more than 2,700 firefighters currently fighting the blazes across the province. The wildfire situation is also pretty bad in many parts of California and Oregon. Firefighters in both states are battling numerous blazes that are threatening a number of communities.
A lot of smoke, and there's a lot of emergency vehicles that are traversing that road in order to get to areas, and we felt just in abundance of caution it would be better to close the road and protect the citizens in that area. They planned for it. It's inundated with resources, and they're really hitting it hard. They want to keep everything on this side of the railroad tracks that are down there. Just rest assured for the citizens of Story, yeah, the resources are out there. Incident commanders have done a great job of preparing for this juncture in the fire.
The Alberta government will be launching a series of town hall meetings across the province to allow you an opportunity to voice concerns about crime in and around your community. Justice Minister Casey Meadow says he understands that crime remains a serious concern for people who live in rural Alberta. Officials say the town hall meetings, which begin on Tuesday, will also be an opportunity to discuss ongoing work to modernize the Police Act and update the public on the feasibility of establishing a provincial police service to replace the RCMP. The first town hall, scheduled for southwestern Alberta, will take place Wednesday, July 21st from 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. at the Town of Clare's home office. Then Thursday, July 22nd from 9 a.m. till 11 a.m. at the Tanner Centennial Senior Centre in Cardston. There's also one planned for 7 till 9 p.m. at the Town of Redcliffe office just outside of Medicine Hat. The Alberta government announced some much-needed funding for recovery centres here in Lethbridge. Lethbridge's Southern Alcare Manor is set to receive more than $300,000 to add 11 publicly funded residential recovery treatment beds. The executive director with Southern Alcare Manor, Ron Fromm, says the new funding gives the agency some stability in offering services to its clients.
We've been wondering, since we've had a contract with the provincial government through ADAC until ADAC was absorbed into the Alberta Health Services. So we've had a contract with them for some 44 years. And we've just been wondering, is it going to extend past March 31st, 2022? So this gives us some more stability. Hopefully we will be around for another 44 years. This is good news funding for us because we work hard for our funding. I mean, we've done everything from casinos to bingos, and we accept donations, and we have had like I said, funding from the provincial government, but this is more. So this just gives us that little bit of edge where we won't have to scramble quite so much.
Along with the manor, a new facility will be built on land adjacent to Fresh Start Recovery Centre just east of Lethbridge. The new centre will allow people to focus on their health, wellness, and long-term recovery. Sexual abuse and sexual assault are words that can cause so much harm and long-term damage to families. Cora-Jean Blalik helps women find freedom from the trauma of sexual abuse. She's also written a book on the subject called Moving from Violated to Victory. Cora-Jean says when it comes to sexual abuse, it's pretty important to not be silent, but for victims to speak out about it.
It can be very difficult to break the silence, to talk about it to others, because it is a horrible thing that nobody wants to believe has happened. And they don't want to believe that anyone they know would do that, and especially if it's within your own family. And there's a code of silence. There's this unspoken hush command that wants to keep us silent. And even if the abuse is not happening, still they don't want anyone to talk about it. But really and truly, the only way to gain freedom is to talk about it.
Cora-Jean Blalik will have more details of how women can find freedom from the trauma of sexual abuse in a very informative interview with Jeanette Rocher coming up in the second half of our newscast. Canadian Blood Services say they need a boost in blood supply this summer. Video journalist Naveen Day spoke with the organization to find out why they're running low on supply.
Canadian Blood Services is calling for an additional 23,000 blood donors across Canada by the end of the month to replenish their blood inventory. At Lethbridge's Plasma Donor Centre, Business Development Manager Brenna Scott says the shortage in supply is being felt due to the easement of COVID-19 restrictions.
People get more vaccinated, stuff starts to open up with less restrictions here in Alberta. People are able to travel more and kind of get out and about more, and because of that we have seen a drop in donations and a drop in more people canceling their appointments. And one thing, the COVID pandemic has really changed a lot throughout this year, but one thing it hasn't changed is the need for blood and plasma, not only here in Lethbridge but across Canada as well.
If you live in southern Alberta and wish to make a plasma-only donation, it's just a short trip. Lethbridge is home to one of 3 plasma donation centers in Canada. If you're looking to make a whole blood donation, Scott says that will require a longer trip.
Here in Lethbridge, we only collect plasma. If donors did want to donate blood, they can do so in Calgary or surrounding areas. But one thing we really want to remind people is both blood and plasma are really crucial and really needed this summer. We have seen an increase in the amount of plasma that's needed year after year, and that's why Lethbridge opened this plasma donation center, as we really want to be able to help more patients across Canada.
Scott says the Lethbridge Plasma Donor Centre has 1,500 slots every month that they need to fill. Many appointments are still available for the month of July. For Bridge City News, I'm Naveen Day.
Volunteers over the age of 18 are needed to be able to pair with a child aged 6 to 16 to become a mentor for the Big Brothers and Big Sisters program here in Lethbridge. The matches are based on compatibility, and the main goal is to get some much-needed one-on-one time together here in our community.
I've just signed up, like it's always been something that I've wanted to do, but I've finally settled here and ready to make that commitment, and I'm really looking forward to it, and the process has been easy and everyone's been super helpful, and it's been really good and easy so far, and I'm pretty excited about starting. And it's great for them to get out and see this and put smiles on their face and do something different, and I think for anyone it would be important to get out and do stuff now that everything's opening up and after being locked up for so long.
To become a volunteer, all you need to do is to commit 2 or 3 hours per week for 1 year. A special program is underway once again to help grow positive interactions between kids and first responders in the Lethbridge area. The Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Lethbridge matched children with volunteers and members of the Colehurst Fire Department and Lethbridge Police Service on Monday to allow for connections to form with our first responders. As Micah Quinn explains now, this is the 20th year for the Kids and Cops program.
The executive director for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Lethbridge, Jen Visser, says this program wants children to know that they have a circle of trust they can confide in.
There are so many kids in our community who just need that friend, and the commitment to be a big brother or big sister isn't as much as what people may think it is. A couple hours a week and you're forming a relationship that isn't going to just change today, it's going to change so much into the future. Our services are prevention. It's as these kids grow up, they make better choices and they have more potential for their future.
Kids were given a special tour today of the Colehurst Fire Hall as part of the Kids and Cops program. Organizers from the Lethbridge Police Service say this is a great way for police officers to have positive interactions with the kids.
A lot of times we found that their first interactions with police have maybe been on the more negative side, and we want to make sure that they have a positive experience with us, show that we're just regular people just like them, and we're here to help them whenever we can. A lot of times what we'll do is show up in uniform like we are today for the first day so they can see what the uniform looks like, ask us some questions about the gear we have in policing in general, and then after that we'll kind of just be plain clothes, just regular. And we just like to have a lot of fun. We do some presentations with them as far as internet safety, drug identification and safety and stuff like that. And then we just have some fun with them in the community.
The Kids and Cops program runs this week from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., Monday to Friday. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Officials with the Calgary Stampede have declared this year's event a success despite attendance numbers taking a major hit. They say attendance numbers averaged around 50,000 people. Officials say 73% of the attendees were Calgarians, 13% from other areas in Alberta, and 12% were from other parts of the country. They say they were proud to host the Stampede as the first large-scale event in Alberta since the start of the pandemic. First Nations across Canada are welcoming back powwows as provinces ease or lift pandemic public health restrictions. Alexis Nakota Sioux Nation in central Alberta hosted their annual 3-day powwow at the beginning of July after the province opened back up on Canada Day. Organizers say the event was the biggest one yet, with thousands attending and about 700 dancers participating. The nation, like many others, had to cancel the event last year due to the pandemic. Other First Nations in Saskatchewan and Manitoba are also hosting powwows later this summer. Survivors, relatives, and community members spoke out at the grounds of the former Delmas Indian Residential School in Saskatchewan. A ground-penetrating radar search for unmarked graves has begun.
Once they've collected the data, they will report back to the tribal council, and we will share the information with everybody, because we made this public because we're tired of keeping secrets. Canada kept us a secret for so long. It's time that these secrets are revealed and to be shared with everybody, but to be shared with the public, with our First Nations, with Delmas.
Nova Scotia Premier Ian Rankin has called for a provincial election for August the 17th. He says the campaign will focus on rebuilding the province's economy after the COVID-19 pandemic. Rankin, who's 38, is hoping to secure a third consecutive term for the Liberal Party after being sworn in as Premier less than 5 months ago.
This province is at a pivotal moment, and we need to continue to make the right decisions for workers, for seniors, for families, and for all Nova Scotians. This election will be about how we best position the province for a strong economic recovery, one that focuses on investments in infrastructure and green technology and renewable energy. And I couldn't be more optimistic about the potential of this province. I'm very proud about the slate of candidates that we have that share that optimistic vision for the future of this province that leaves no Nova Scotian behind.
Meanwhile, overseas, German Chancellor Angela Merkel toured a village in western Germany where many buildings were damaged by rapidly rising floodwaters. The death toll from last week's flooding now stands at over 180 people. In the North Rhine-Westphalia state, one of Germany's most popular regions, 46 people were killed. In neighboring Belgium, there were 31 confirmed deaths. Rescuers continue to dig deep into the debris, searching for survivors as the waters begin to recede. Tensions between China and Japan have escalated once again. A threatening video has surfaced saying the Chinese Communist Party will use nuclear bombs on the Asian island nation if it interferes in the liberation of Taiwan. China says if Japan dares to intervene by force with even a single plane or ship, China will not only return fire, but will also wage a full-scale war against Japan. Japan's Deputy Prime Minister said his country must defend Taiwan under their alliance with the U.S. Japan's Defense Minister also said that Japan and the U.S. must protect Taiwan as a democratic country. The heat warning has ended for much of southwestern Alberta, but the special air quality statement regarding the wildfire smoke continues. How long will it last? Details are coming up shortly. We had a lot of smoke in our region once again today due to the many wildfires burning in areas such as BC and Montana. Environment Canada issued another special air quality statement for Lethbridge today. The air quality index was 8 or high risk. The air quality should improve slightly on Monday night to about a 6 or moderate risk, then back up to 9 or 10 with high risk again on Tuesday. As for the forecast, there's a chance of showers developing tonight with a low near 14. Tomorrow, a chance of more rain developing with a high near 27. Wednesday, some of the smoke should clear out, as will the clouds, and we should see a high near 29. Thursday, mainly sunny with a high expected near 26. Friday and Saturday, the mercury will climb even further up to 28. Sunday, expect lots of sunshine and a high near 29. Checking the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 26 degrees with an average low of 11. The record high for this day was recorded in 1960 at 39 degrees, and the record low was 5 degrees in 1996. The sun rose at 5:45 and will set at 9:30. Checking the national forecast for tomorrow now, it should be partly cloudy and 22 degrees in Victoria, BC. Just a few clouds and 23 is on tap for Vancouver. A good chance of showers developing in Edmonton on Tuesday with a high of only 19. A mixture of sun and cloud and 27 for Calgary. Light showers and 26 are expected in Regina. A good chance of rain and 25 for Saskatoon on Tuesday. Winnipeg was smoky again today due to the wildfire smoke from northern Ontario. Tomorrow expect more smoky conditions with a high of 27. Toronto, which has seen its share of rain, will expect more on Tuesday with a high near 27. Showers and 25 expected in both Ottawa and Montreal. In Atlantic Canada, expect thunderstorms at 28 degrees for Fredericton, New Brunswick. Light rain at 23 for Halifax, Nova Scotia. A good chance of showers and 25 for Charlottetown, PEI. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect rain with a high of only 21 degrees on Tuesday.
Today's weather is brought to you by Jeff Reimer of Royal LePage South Country Real Estates, 403-380-1779.
A new report says Canada's manufacturing sector is outperforming pre-pandemic levels but faces challenges amid increasing Buy American provisions in the U.S. The RSM report says manufacturing is leading the Canadian economy out of the recession caused by the pandemic. It also says Ontario stands to gain the most from automaker commitments to electric vehicles. The report also says Canada's reliance on the U.S. leaves it vulnerable to trade frictions between the two countries. TransAlta has completed the second of 3 planned coal-to-gas conversions at its Alberta thermal power generation facilities. The conversion of the Keep Hills Unit 2 to natural gas is part of the Calgary-based company's plan to generate only clean energy in Alberta by the end of the year. The facility will be converted later this year as the company works to become carbon neutral by the year 2050. Company officials say the latest conversion maintains TransAlta's current generation capacity and reduces carbon dioxide emissions by more than half. Video conferencing service Zoom is buying the cloud call center company Five9 in an all-stock deal valued at $14.7 billion US. Zoom founder and CEO Eric Yuan says the acquisition will allow the company to accelerate its long-term growth by adding the $24 billion contact center market. Yuan says the deal also complements the Zoom phone, which is now seeing very strong demand. The U.S. is blaming China for a hack of Microsoft Exchange email server software that compromised tens of thousands of computers around the world earlier this year. The Biden administration and allied countries have also disclosed a broad range of other cyber threats from Beijing. They include ransomware attacks from government-affiliated hackers that have targeted companies with demands for millions of dollars. A spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry says attribution of cyber attacks should be based on evidence and not groundless accusations. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 259 points on the day to finish at 19,726. The Dow was down 725 points to 33,962. The S&P 500 was down 68 points to 4258. And the Nasdaq was down 152 points on the day to 14,275. West Texas Intermediate oil took a real hit today, down $5.39 to $66.42 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 10 cents to $3.78 US. Gold was down 11 cents to $18.12.53 US an ounce, and silver was even at $25.18 US an ounce. Wheat is at $410 per metric ton, barley's at $405. Canola is at $9.14, and corn is at $405 per metric ton. Live cattle were up 8 cents to $120.25. Feeder cattle were up $1.75 to $157.38, and lean hogs were down $1.18 to $104.48. The Canadian dollar was even over the past 24 hours at 78.46 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, many of us here in southwestern Alberta woke up to smoky and hazy conditions again today. The wildfire smoke from both BC and Montana has lingered for a number of days now, and according to Environment Canada, it will be with us for at least a few more days. Air quality indexes were reported as high in many parts of the province. At last count, there are now more than 308 wildfires burning in BC, including 2 100-hectare wildfires burning out of control along the Alberta-BC border in the East Kootenays. One fire grew from just under a hectare to 100 hectares overnight. Cora Jean Blalock helps women find freedom from the trauma of sexual abuse. She's even written a book on the subject called Moving from Violated to Victory. Coming up, BCN's Jeanette Rocher speaks with Cora Jean, who discusses the importance of not remaining silent, but speaking out against sexual abuse. That Q&A is on deck. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. Fort Whoop-Up and New West Theatre are partnering up to provide a fun and exciting dinner theater experience called Trader Tales, taking place Friday, July 23rd from 6 to 9 p.m. Take in a private tour of the fort, enjoy a relaxing wagon ride, and delicious dinner. The evening culminates with an intimate performance featuring New West Theatre actors. Cost is $45 per person. For tickets, visit fort.galtmuseum.com. Looking for some summer fun and faith-filled adventures for your kids? Park Meadows Baptist Church presents Treasured Vacation Bible School, taking place July 26th to the 30th from 9 to 11:30 a.m. each day. Your kids will embark on an epic quest through hidden ruins and ancient caves to discover that they are God's greatest treasure. Cost is $10 per child and open to kids ages 4 to 11. For more information and to register, visit parkmeadowschurch.ca. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
Far too many people have suffered sexual abuse, and it remains a difficult thing to talk about with others. Recovery from abuse is difficult, but some individuals do seem to be able to recover. Today's guest knows what this is all about. We are joined by Cora Jean Blaylock, who now helps other women find freedom from the trauma of sexual abuse and is the author of Moving from Violated to a Victory. Welcome to Bridge City News, Cora Jean. So great to have you on today.
Thank you, Jeanette. I just feel so privileged and honored to be here.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you. That's amazing. Now, Cora Jean, can you maybe share a little bit about your personal story, your personal journey as a child of abuse?
Sure. Being born into a family, a home life that where sexual abuse was an issue, a pedophile for a father, and a mom who wasn't trained well. Her mother had abandoned her, and she just didn't know how to deal with it. And so what she chose to do was sort of hide and deny. So of course that's the perfect storm, right? So it just lets the issue keep going. So it carried on until my father was killed in a car accident when I was 11.
Wow. So you have experienced some hurt, and you've also experienced some healing, and you suggest that healing involves both physical and spiritual wholeness in your book. So how so? Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Healing is definitely possible. We serve a God who describes himself as Jehovah Rapha, God our physician. So he's wanting to heal us. We know he's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So whatever we find in God's word that talks about healing, we can hold on to those words and we can apply them to our lives, and we can walk into victory. I wish that it was a magic wand and that it could happen, overnight. But that's not typically how it works. We discipline ourselves under righteousness. All of us who are seeking to follow Christ are doing that. And this is really no different. It's just that for some of us, we have a lot further to walk. We have been, maybe in some very dark places. We've grappled with torment, despair. The list goes on. But God is bigger than that, and he is able to bring us into the life that we've imagined for ourselves, a life of abundance. So we don't have to live in that darkness. We don't have to live in a cycle where we continue to create for ourselves kind of just horrible experiences, really, because when you're trained in trauma, that's how you live your life.
Okay, well, it's interesting that you say train that, because your book also talks about learning to retrain your body. So what do you mean by this exactly?
That's such a great question. And it's not that easy to answer, really. But the path is simple, and it comes back to faith as well. My body, in massage therapy, what we generally talk about is how the muscles have memories. Okay, so like if you've broken your leg, for example, you're favoring that leg for a long time, aren't we? And then we learn to use it properly, we gain more confidence, and then we forget and we treat it normally. But when we've been maligned physically in abuse, any type of abuse really, but because we're talking about sexual abuse, that typically has to do with our reproductive organs and that area in the body in general. And I'm not suggesting we go in and touch that space specifically, because we still want to honor the body and reverence it and maintain our privacy and dignity. But the upper legs, for example, carry a lot of energy from the reproductive area. And to go in and touch that space, to bring awareness to it, forgiveness, to intentionally say, I have been hurt here, and I am going to bring nurturing. I'm going to bring comfort. And so often these areas are ignored. We just say, well, I've dealt with it, emotionally and mentally, so I must be fine. But the problem is, let yourself get married and allow your husband to touch you, and bam, you can go right back to that place. Flashback. It comes back to you. And the gut, the Chinese have long called our stomachs our emotional brain. And that area also requires retraining.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you were around 11 years old when this stopped. So what happened after that? How long was it before you were able to heal? Did your mother help you after that? And were you able to get the help that you need, or did that come much later in life?
Well, my family did their best. My mom, she left, and we lived with my father's mom and dad. And all I'm going to say about them is they did their best.
Yeah.
But they weren't prepared to deal with this stuff.
Right.
We're talking about the 80s. Nobody really was, at least not in the circles we were in. But I did have some really good help around the time I was 20. A lady by the name of Charlene Hansen. She actually runs a program called Women of Courage. She taught me how to pray. She taught me how to apply God's word to my life and to believe it. And that has made all the difference for me. I never found much help in counseling, to be honest. Talking about it is very important. To share your story, that's a very important first step, breaking the silence. But once you get there, you need a program, you need something to apply to your life to change it, a teaching, in other words.
Yeah.
So.
And I think when it comes to that type of abuse, maybe spiritual healing might be the only way to really break through that. I don't know. I can't speak from experience. Only you can, Cora Jean. And I'm really just so sorry that anything like that happened to you.
Oh, Jeanette, you're so right on. Spiritual healing is paramount. We need God. We need him to come in, because when he breaks the chains. And without that, even the physical healing isn't going to do it for us. It's mind, body, spirit. It's our hearts, it's our souls, the whole thing. They talk about the first 5 years being the most important formative years of your life, right? You have to go back and retrain all that, and it does. It's the Spirit of God who really does the work for us.
Now, Cora Jean, why is there confusion that surrounds recovering memories of sexual abuse? Do you have to dig all of that up in order to heal, or why not just let those memories of the past stay buried?
Yeah, I think that retrieving your memory is very important, but I don't think it's vital to remember everything. I think that it's really difficult to believe ourselves, and it can be very difficult to break the silence, to talk about it to others, because it is a horrible thing that nobody wants to believe has happened. And they don't want to believe that anyone they know would do that, and especially if it's within your own family. And there's a code of silence. There's this unspoken hush command that wants to keep us silent. And even if the abuse is not happening, still they don't want anyone to talk about it, But really and truly, the only way to gain freedom is to talk about it. And we know that where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. God's word has told us that what has been whispered will be shouted from rooftops. God already knows. That is the most comforting thing that ever came to me in the area of memories and dealing with this, because it's very shameful when you're the victim, even though you are the victim. Like, it's not my fault at all, yet I have to carry this load of shame. But God already knows. He already knows it all. He remembers everything. It hasn't passed by him. It hasn't slipped by. And so when we bring truth, when we trust God to help us bring truth, he says in the Psalms, surely I desire truth in the inward parts. We need truth. We need truth for health. I mean, I think we know that, in our own experience, even in our personal relationships, if there's a lie standing between myself and someone else, however little, it's going to cause a problem. And this is a big lie if we don't bring it out and trust God and begin to trust ourselves, and the Holy Spirit will help us remember what we need to know. But let us not get caught up on remembering everything or convincing people, because some people are going to not believe and misunderstand you regardless of what you do.
Wow. Did you ever within yourself learn to forgive your father for doing, and is that part of the healing? Do you have to forgive them?
Jeanette, thank you for asking me that. I love forgiveness. There is so much freedom in forgiveness. There's so much magnificence in forgiveness. Forgiveness is not saying what you did is okay, so I'm going to forget about it. Forgiveness isn't even really for the perpetrator. Forgiveness is a gift to me. Forgiveness sets me free. I don't have to be angry. I don't have to have a judgment about it. I can just look to God. I can look to myself and say, look, it's you and I, God. Let's deal with this and forget about that guy. I mean, the good book says we've got to forgive people 7 times, 77 times, right? What I've learned is the reality is sometimes you have to forgive that many times for the same act. And that could be anything that hurts us, right? But still, it comes to mind, I don't want to forgive. I don't feel like forgiving. This is the worst thing you could have done to me. So I'm not going to forgive you. You deserve for me to hate you. But we're not talking about what people deserve. We're talking about a supernatural empowering from God himself, who has said, I will help you forgive. You're not going to feel like it at first. I didn't feel like it. Some days I still don't feel like it. But then I say, God, I surrender to you. Your way is best. Help me. Change my heart. Give me the desire. And with my will, I can forgive, even if I don't forgive with my feelings.
Mm-hmm. I know, Cora Jean, how did you bridge that gap between an earthly father and what he did to you with the heavenly Father?
Well, I have been blessed with a really great church family. And so I would be remiss if I didn't mention that I've seen many examples of really spectacular earthly fathers. But some people don't have that opportunity. What it boils down to is we just have got to believe God. We just have to believe him. We've got to read his word and say, Lord, I believe that you have chosen me. I believe that all your thoughts toward me are good. I believe that you didn't let this happen, that you didn't want this to happen. But we live in a fallen world where people have free will. And without free will, relationships are meaningless. We're robots. But we have to deal with each other. We have to deal with each other's weaknesses and faults. And a lot of times those things are played out on one another. So we put our trust in God and we say, Lord, I believe you.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know there are, of course, viewers who have experienced sexual abuse. So what message would you like to leave with them, Cora Jean?
Don't give up. Never, never give up. And trust God and read your Bible. And I'm standing in a field of victory. I have more than I could have imagined right now. God cares about you. His eye is on the sparrow, and he wants to see you walk in wholeness. Just don't give up.
Yeah, that's a good message and words of wisdom as well. Thanks so much for being with us today, Cora Jean. We really appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Jeanette, I can't thank you enough.
Of course. Cora Jean Blaylock is the author of Moving from Violated to Victory, available at www.gutsandvictory.com.
Alberta's Open for Summer plan is in full swing, with most of the pandemic restrictions being lifted. To talk about how the economy has been bouncing back and recovering so far is UCP Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Neudorf. Nathan, welcome back to Bridge City News.
Great to be here, Hal.
Now, Nathan, here in Lethbridge, folks are so happy to see the movie mill open once again to full capacity. People are enjoying themselves at restaurants and, of course, full places of worship here. But let's start with our churches for a moment. The pastors you've been speaking with must be feeling quite relieved that they're able to welcome back a lot of their congregants.
They absolutely are, Hal. It's been a long time and a lot of restrictions that are really hard and challenging for often small churches to meet. But they've done a great job. I'm really proud of all of our religious facilities here in Lethbridge, trying to protect others, trying to adhere the guidelines. And again, we've just got a terrific record here in Lethbridge, and they're really glad to be fully open.
How about some of the business owners? Many have gone under during the pandemic, but those who survived must also be breathing a huge sigh of relief.
Yeah, it has been incredibly difficult, particularly for our hospitality and tourism sector. They've just had a really difficult times with increased restrictions and then opening partially and then restrictions again. My heart goes out to anybody who did lose a business. That's incredibly difficult, and I hope that they can bounce back as quickly as possible. And the businesses that have made it through summer, good weather, people looking to get back to some of those activities, hopefully they see a great resurgence, and that can set them up for months and years to come.
Premier Jason Kenney shuffled his cabinet recently. Now, some of the most notable names include Jason Lawan, going from mental health and addictions to community and social services. Rajan Sawhney took over from Rick McIver as Minister of Transportation. Nathan, why the shuffle? Is it that the Premier maybe didn't have confidence in certain people, in certain portfolios?
I don't think it was that. I think it's just we've been 2 years. COVID extended the time from when he would naturally have made a cabinet shuffle. So now that we finished the session, we have definitely seen the decline of COVID. It's a very natural time to make some of those changes and give some fresh faces a chance. And I think we're hoping for a resurgence in our economic recovery, some new names, new faces, move things around a little bit and move forward. It could have been a lot more seats changed, but I think we've got some good additions there.
Yeah, like Tyler Shandro kept his health portfolio, Devin Dreesh, the Ag Minister, and so forth. Travis Taves with the Finance Minister. How about Nathan Neudorf? Any chance you become a minister, maybe, in the next cabinet shuffle?
Well, you never know what can happen. I'm very pleased at this point to be serving as caucus chair, elected by the rest of private members in caucus to represent them and help their voice to be heard by cabinet. So I do have a very unique and fulfilling role in that chair, and a lot of access to the Premier and Cabinet to make sure those voices get heard as well. I think it's a great balance to Cabinet. So while I would love to serve in Cabinet if that opportunity came my way, at least I have a role right now where I can really sink my teeth into, and again, help the private members get their voices and concerns heard, and again, build us together as a team.
The province and the federal government recently announced the Canada Housing Benefit Addendum under the National Housing Strategy, providing $444 million in funding up to the year 2028 to support Alberta's recently redesigned rental supplement program. Lathan, what will that really look like for needy Alberta families?
Well, I think there's some really great parts in that measure. There's access to temporary help for those who are really feeling the pinch right now, which is really good news because we've come through a long time where some of our people are really suffering. And there's also a part that is more maintained long-term supports where people can access those for a number of years. And that'll really help those people have some stability. As you know, Hal, some people can bounce back very quickly. We get a new job, and everything goes up quite quickly. Some people need a little more time. So I'm glad that it has both aspects within this program.
More and more unmarked graves are being discovered near former residential schools, Nathan. Over 1,500 so far and counting. It's just a matter of time before we discover a large number here in our province. Now, what's being done to find a lot of the graves here, and how will this work toward reconciliation with our Indigenous communities?
Sure. Yeah, it's a very challenging time for us in Canada and Alberta. And our government has established the Alberta Residential Schools Community Research Grant. So I had to look at my notes there to make sure I got all those words right. And it's an $8 million fund to help support community research into unmarked burial sites and undocumented deaths. We have to face this part of our history. We have to do so with compassion, care, with truth, to find the truth that's there, and then work towards reconciliation with those First Nations brothers and sisters throughout our province. This is a good first step. We'll see what we need to do beyond that, but this is a place to start.
You know, the number of people have been acting out and vandalizing and burning churches across the West here. The Catholic Church in Morinville is no more. Nathan, why is it that more people were being arrested in Alberta for going to church during the pandemic rather than those who are attacking and burning churches?
Well, I think those are some troubling numbers right now. I do believe that there were very few that were actually arrested going to church. I know some organizations, some pastors face some unfortunate consequences, not how I would like the script to read, certainly. But I do believe that as we investigate each one of those fires, our police and law enforcement officers will find out the truth of those situations, and each one will have its own significance and story. And I believe the appropriate actions will be taken at that time to bring those perpetrators to the correct results and justice as needed.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying it's better to build up than tear down. And right now we have to do a better job building up as a society right here, working towards reconciliation. Nathan, millions of Albertans have now been vaccinated, and our city, Lethbridge, has close to 75% of all eligible people aged 12 and over receiving at least one jab. Now, for those who are still uncomfortable with receiving a COVID-19 vaccine, what would you like to say to them?
Basically, I just want to reassure them, ask them to talk to their doctor, ask them to look at the facts, watch their friends who have received the vaccination. There's been a lot of hype, there's been a lot of controversy, there's been a lot of conspiracy theories about that, but we do know that every vaccine and almost every medication has unfortunate side effects. So I want anybody and everybody considering it to feel comfortable with their decision. They need to take the time that they've taken. We're very fortunate in Lethbridge that 75% of people have done so. That allows us to open much more readily. But I don't want anyone to feel coerced into taking that vaccine. I need people to feel comfortable that they have made the right decision for themselves in the right time. There are those who react adversely to different medications more readily than others. We need to give them the time to make that decision for themselves.
Let me ask you something. Can I ask you a personal question? Have you been vaccinated?
I have. I'm fortunate to be fully double vaccinated, have been for several weeks, and no side effects for me. I'm very thankful for that. And that was my decision, my choice, but I want to make sure everybody has the freedom to make that decision for themselves.
You know, some people thought it was kind of odd that the Alberta government is hosting a lottery, giving away millions of dollars in cash and prizes. Some people kind of compare it to like a car manufacturer who offers cashback rebates for less popular models that they want to get off the lot. We're incentivizing Albertans with their own tax dollars. How do you respond?
Well, I try to change the conversation a little bit by saying we're actually incentivizing people for their health and to save costs. You can imagine that with the numbers that we've seen in Alberta, for a patient that ends up in the ICU, I think an average cost for the duration of their stay is something like $26,000 per patient. Well, you multiply that by a couple thousand, well, that might be a bit high, by say a few hundred to 1,000 people who have been in ICU, that's a significant cost for the province. A small number, I think it's $3 million prizes for a vaccination lottery, will more than pay for itself in health savings and health cost savings over time. And again, I don't want anybody to take that as coercion, but it is an incentive to help people maybe make that decision to get vaccinated.
Finance Minister Travis Taves recently announced that the province must rein in healthcare spending, citing that Alberta nurses are making 5.6% more than nurses in some other provinces. Alberta has got to get its spending under control, but cutting back on healthcare, especially right after a pandemic, not sure this is going to be very popular with many Albertans, Nathan. What do you think?
I agree with you, Hal. I actually think that timing is everything. In so many areas of our life, we know that timing's everything, and this timing couldn't be more poor. I know that when we were elected, balancing the budget was a huge priority, and we do have to keep the importance of that forefront in our minds. But in my personal opinion, nurses, we've been using and asking them to do more and more all the time. We need nurses to man vaccination clinics. We need nurses to work overtime on evenings and weekends for those who are getting sick. Nurses as a whole probably have done more for our province than any other group. They haven't had a single day off. They haven't been able to close hospitals in any way, shape, or form. And in fact, I think we need more nurses to do more work. So while I understand maybe the basic need for a negotiation on a base pay, the incentives for nurses to work overtime, evenings, weekends, holidays, I think we need to recognize how valuable they are and pay them accordingly. And there may be time in the future where we can balance the budget in that way. And we do have to always look at public sector wage negotiations. But I agree that this timing is poor, and I want to acknowledge and call our nurses what they are. Everyday heroes who go to work and do a lot to keep people safe, and then we've asked them to do more, and I think they should be compensated accordingly.
Are you also concerned that maybe some nurses will be following the lead of some of the doctors and leaving Alberta?
Not so much. I think nurses, by and large, are really invested in their community, and they are not nearly able to move up and leave like a doctor in their practice might be able to. They're more linked to their community, more linked to their hospital. But I do think that we need to recognize the work that they do and honor and praise them for that.
Justice Minister Casey Medu wanted Lethbridge Police Chief Shahimi Dizadeh to tweak his plan for cleaning up the Lethbridge Police Service, including the training of new officers and more transparency. Where do we stand with that? Because I know we had to do some tweaking, send it to Medu. Has it been settled now?
As far as I know, it has been settled. There's been some of that tweaking. They've managed a plan, and I think we have a very strong plan moving forward. Chief Medizadeh has done an incredible amount of work. He inherited a whole lot of bad news, if I can put it that way, and he has worked diligently and faithfully with his entire force. I don't know about you, Hal, but I haven't heard a single police officer complain about this incredible scrutiny that they've gone under. They have been true professionals. They've stood up in their uniform of blue. They've stood behind the badge. They've taken the good with the bad, and they're moving ahead as a strong police force, and I couldn't be more proud of them right now.
What's great about Chief Shahimi Dizadeh, too, he brings over 30 years of experience with the RCMP to his role as Lethbridge Police Chief here. Now, Nathan, we recently interviewed Paul Hinman with the Wild Rose Independence Party, which now apparently has around 20% of support from Albertans. Many are worried that with the Wild Rose gaining momentum, it would split the vote on the right, and once again, the NDP would go right up the middle the next election. Your thoughts?
It's very possible, and I believe that there's a very strong expectation on us as government right now to get out there and listen to the people of Alberta. We need to be more responsive. I know that I've been working harder to get out to the people in Lethbridge, to hear them, to listen to them, and to make sure that their thoughts and concerns are taken to Cabinet and the Premier so that we can respond and correct any course actions that we're doing. So it's going to be a lot of work. I may not be the most prolific on my social media platform, but I can tell you I do everything possible to get out there and talk to the average, everyday, normal Albertan, the person working in Lethbridge that might not be seen by government in typical times, to hear them, to hear their stories, and make sure that their voices are heard. And I will continue to do that with all my effort, all my time, and all my dedication.
You know, I think that's the key right now. You've got about 2 years to restore the confidence with Albertans before the next provincial election, because right now the UCP is polling quite low. So how do you restore that confidence? I mean, it's the door knocking, but what else can you do, really?
It's really responding and hearing to what people are saying, right, Hal? That's a difference between hearing and listening, in my opinion, and we've got to do more. We have to get back to some of those foundational basics that we were elected on and make sure that we're truly responsive to people and their needs and making some effective change. Now, I believe that we've done that to some degree, and I'm very proud of some of the investments we've made in Southern Alberta in our agricultural sector, but I think we need to do more. And it's not just about spending money, but it's about doing the corrective action so people can get the lives and livelihoods back that they want to have and they expect to have here in our great province.
Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Newdorf, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Hal. Appreciate it.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks so much for watching.